What's up, everybody? It's time for The Wire. It's Wednesday, October 20th. We are going to talk a little bit about what we talked about last week with the Urban Meyer, John Gruden, and those teams. We're going to kind of follow up on that. We definitely, I think, need to talk a little bit about the one, the only. We'll get to it. We'll talk about something we talked a lot about early summer, and then we're going to do our score rundown and so much more. The Wire starts right now.
I'm going in, it's first and 10. I'm a legend boy, a champion. They can't match the flows, the X's and O's. I'm breaking the code, devastation about to unfold. They calling me Derek by the way I roll. Bet you never ever seen a pro this cold. I float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. I mix with I am Mike and the great Ali. I'm a run it back, believe me baby. I fathered the game, call me Daddy Brady. I'm like that, try be like this. Sammy Sosa, that boy don't miss. It's the return of the greatest. Any way you name it, I'm everybody's favorite. I'm bringing the pain and bringing the fire. Hey, stay tuned, it's going down to the wire.
That's right, boys. It is time for The Wire. As you can see, I am definitely getting in the Halloween mood. I know this is the sports show, but we are like a week and a half away from Halloween. So I just can't wait any longer. Putting it on. Guys, how you doing?
Doing good, brother. Ready to go.
Heck yeah. Well, I don't have a whole lot of spooky stories for us coming out of the NFL this week, but we are going to stick with the NFL. We're going to kick things off today, kind of going back in time a little bit. So another week of professional American football is in the books. There were some fantastic games, but I'd like to kick the show off by following up on the conversations that we had last week. We talked last week about the off-the-field controversies, specifically regarding Urban Meyer and John Gruden. We did lay mention to the fact that with the team builds they currently have, respectively in Jacksonville and Oakland, or no, Las Vegas.
You motherfucker!
It can actually see what I did. I can't get used to all this stuff. It's absolutely devastating to have these kind of out of game distractions going on when the teams are in the position that they are. But guys, I don't think that we were necessarily wrong in anything that we said last week, with the exception of, I think none of us expected them to come out, either team to come out in week 6 and get a win. And the Raiders did play and beat Denver Broncos 34-24, and the Jaguars beat Miami 23-20. So my first question to go around the horn with today is pretty simple. Which win surprises you more and why? And Marvin, why don't we kick it off with you, man?
Which one is more surprising? Break those games down again.
So following up on our conversation about John Gruden and Urban Meyer, we had Denver got their win, or Denver lost to the Raiders.
The Las Vegas Raiders.
To the Las Vegas Raiders. I didn't even want to say them again. No, I'm just kidding. And then Miami lost to the Jags. Which win is more surprising to you and why?
The Raiders win was more surprising to me because I was honestly shocked to see the team kind of rally together and play as a strong defensively. I honestly thought there'd be a lot of breakdowns offensively because John Gruden wasn't there. Before all this happened, you had a vocal leader on the sidelines who was pretty much the face of the franchise. Normally, most of the time, we talk about quarterbacks being the face of the franchise, but it was John Gruden, so it was weird that, the Raiders, were able to get that win. They're not absent of talent, but it was just to see how they responded to new leadership in the locker room. I thought that was most surprising. But following that up with the Jaguars win, that was surprising as well. But I mean, not more surprising than the Raiders, but it was surprising that they were in London. You're outside of your realm. Comfort, especially for Trevor Lawrence, and they got the job done. Urban Meyer gets to live another day, but at the same time, as we've said before, I think that this is just literally one game, 1 of 4, even though they ended their, one of the longest losing streaks But ultimately, at the end of the day, Urban Meyer will have to go. At the end of the season, if not in the middle of the season, let him ride it out. But for Khan and the rest of that front office, they can't possibly think that Urban Meyer is the future, that this locker room is going to respond to his leadership going forward. I think that he set a bad precedent this year, and they'll have to get somebody else along with the Raiders. I don't think that their head coach, they had a decent matchup going up against the Broncos, but it's only going to get tougher from there on out. So I think this is the start of a new beginnings for the Raiders. You do away with the coach, could be the end of Derek Carr into this season. You never know.
Richie, what about you, man? Which of these two wins surprised you more, given everything we talked about last week?
Well, I'm a little annoyed you said Oakland because that bothers me. I hate that they left Oakland.
I'm sorry.
They finally got good, and then they leave Oakland. That's what happens. And then this asshole's got to rub it in. To me, Jaguars for sure. And I say this very, very specifically. James Robinson is a great running back. And Urban Meyer has consistently not utilized him well. And even with his mismanagement and lack of usage, the previous week, he didn't get to run the ball in the last 8 minutes when it was a 4-point game. And James, just so you know, with his lack of utilization, Trevor Lawrence playing very mediocre, them being winless, he has the 6th most rushing yards. He's almost in the top 5 over Taylor, which Marvin and I have mentioned as for the Colts is a stud. He's right behind him with an inept coach. So you have a stud running back, you have a future good quarterback, but you're not using your running back. So to me, that caught me off guard more. The reason why I'm not surprised with the Raiders is I agree with Marvin. It's a shocker. Obviously, they're both shockers. Your head coach just disappears with all that distraction and you rally out. But the Raiders are legit. They're the number one in the AFC West. That includes Kansas City and the Chargers. We've talked about how good the Chargers are. This is a good AFC West team. It was a division win, which is, again, kudos to them even further for being galvanized and rallying to beat the Broncos. But Derek Carr is second in passing yards right now. People are not talking about Derek Carr enough this season. Derek Carr is playing fantastic. Henry Ruggs III has been playing fantastic. Their running game isn't what you would want, but they're passing and they're balling. Like they feel like Kansas City from last year in the sense of they're really relying on their passing game right now. And I just, to me, I think the Raiders are for real. I don't think they're going to win this year, but they're legitimately for real. And, Darren, what's his name? Waller? Marvin? Darren Waller? Yeah, Darren Waller is a fucking monster. We were talking about him a little bit last year. And this is a very good offensive team with a very good quarterback. And I was a little less surprised from that perspective. The talent is in Las Vegas. The weird part was, their head coach disappearing and them still being able to rally and galvanize. But I think that's what it was. Is like, hey, this isn't the John Gruden show. We're the Las Vegas Raiders. We're legitimate. And then they showed it. They went out and showed it. Congratulations, regardless, to Jacksonville looming and not being able to win for so long. Get that, monkey off their back. I don't think this is a sign of things to come. But what I will say is for Jacksonville, week in and week out, they were within 7 to 10 points. So they played very close games. This isn't as that bad of a football team. I think Detroit is significantly worse than Jacksonville, quite frankly. But Jacksonville's still a bottom dweller. And between the two, I'm always going to take Vegas because Vegas is the better team. So, but because of their talent, I'm gonna say Jacksonville was the bigger shock. They were both crazy though.
Yeah, absolutely. So I like to do this from time to time, and we're just gonna go back and forth because I got just you guys in this little intimate podcast setting this week. We can't wait to see the other guys again going forward. So secondly, I'd like to, we've done this before. I want to put you guys in the decision maker role, whatever that is, with either or both organizations, completely up to you. Marvin, we're going to start with you. What can and or should you do in a decision maker role with either or both organizations in order to do right by the team? Keep them motivated and focused on the season. With all the distractions going on, how would you steer them in the direction of growth and success?
Oh, for others, you change the culture, change the culture from the inside out, and that starts with coaching, starts with the front office. You have to have like-minded guys, that simply, you guys know, that want to win. That's where it starts. You have to have a general manager that wants to win. You have to have a team president that wants to win. You have to have a CEO that wants to win. You have to have the defensive coaches that want to win. You have to have the head coach that wants to win. And then you have to have players. You have to go out and you have to make moves. I want to say moneyball moves to get the right group of guys, and bring them together for a common goal. And that's really where it starts, is the culture, team philosophy, and that's just winning. So if I was in charge of a team, that's where it starts. You have to have, you build a team from the inside out. It starts with your defense. You gotta have, you gotta start with great. You have to have great linebackers. You have to have a generational talent on a defensive end, and a generational, talented quarterback. But give me a generational talented defense over a quarterback any day. And then I can build my team accordingly throughout the years. I can get a cornerstone running back, but I don't have to overspend for big time receivers when I can get, pieces and bring, affordable, not affordable, but, get guys that can, perennial, Pro Bowlers that can play at an elite level, or veterans that can play at an elite level, and bring them together for a common goal. And I think that's, that's where you start if you're a GM, or that's at least what I do.
Absolutely. Richie, same question. If you could step in as a decision maker, whatever that means for either or both organizations, what changes would you start making, or what would you implement to keep the team focused on the right goals?
Okay, I'll start with the Jaguars. Fire Urban Meyer. I've already said that already. To me, Darrell Bevell is who they should use. He was the interim coach for the Lions last year. He's dealt with these types of things with Matt Patricia. I think he's your consistency. I would love for Charlie Strong, who is the assistant head coach, to have a chance. But again, he's only coached at college, just like Urban. So just de facto, because of that, I would lean to Darrell Bevell first, and then maybe you see what Charlie's capable of, and get, I would love to have a black, head coach again and have more opportunities for that. But having said that, Darrell has already ridden the ship with Detroit, and I can trust that, we need leadership now and somebody who understands the NFL now. So if I were the Jaguars, I'd cut ties with Urban, keep the rest of his coaching staff, have Bevell try to right the ship. They have James Robinson, they have Trevor Lawrence, they have pieces that they can start building, and they need somebody who gets it and somebody who wants to win and not just say things to the media, but actually put in the work. As we talked about, I was too disgusted with this flight situation, so I'm over Urban Meyer. He should be fired. I'm going to say that week in and week out. Fire Urban Meyer. If I'm the Raiders, honestly, there's really not much to say. I think the team is talented. You still have Tom Cable as your offensive line. What I like them to do is focus on running, like we talked about. I think they're too pass heavy right now. I like to see them getting a little more rushing going on. And I think his name's Rich Bisaccia. That's who the interim coach is at the moment. Rich has been doing it for 5 years for the Raiders. So, he knows what he's doing. But they're a great team. I don't have much to say to Oakland. Just keep doing what they've been doing. They've been balling out passing, but I would like to see a more balanced offense. I don't believe it's in Derek Carr's best interest to be passing that often. He doesn't do well against the blitz, and that's what happened last year. And that's why they struggled. So right now they're playing well. They're a great team. And I don't really have much to say other than try a little more balanced offense. Their defense is playing great. They're 4-2 and first in the AFC West, and easily at this rate and with this game signifying they're capable of making the playoffs, if not even winning their own division. So, and when you think of who's in their division, that's incredible.
Absolutely. All right, let's do this. Let's go to a break. We'll come back. I got another story about the NFL, and then if we got some time, we can run through the scores and pass or play. You guys are listening and watching The Wire. If you're listening to us on the audio platforms, we do now throw polls in there based on our content. So feel free to get involved in the episode. We'd love to read some of your opinions on the air. We do also have the Q&A on there. If you'd like to be involved, go ahead and leave a review and say right in the review, I want to be on the show. We'll get you in. Also, check out our Facebook and our YouTube. We do post video versions of all of our podcasts there. You just have to search the Wire Sports Podcast. It's pretty easy. You found us on audio, so it's the exact same thing. Move that over to Facebook. In our links below, you can get to everything. In the comments below, you can get to everything, as well as our Patreon, and that's where you get all the exclusive behind the scenes. You're listening to and watching The Wire. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. We're going to talk about a certain quarterback we've talked about a few times. The H2G Podcast, Fridays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tune into H2G to hear us talk about the real topics like the heartbeat law, social media, and more. The H2G Podcast, Season 7, every Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Welcome back to The Wire, everybody. I hope that you enjoyed that little ad there. Please do check out the H2G Podcast, handling all of the big topics this year. So far, you have a chance to listen to us talk on, let's see, what do we have week one? I'm going to think back. Man, I've been so busy lately. Week one, we talked about the heartbeat bill and pro-life versus pro-choice. We talked about social media in week two. We've talked about bucket lists so far. We've talked about all kinds of good things and more to come. Check out the H2G Podcast, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify. Okay, back to sports. Gentlemen, we're going to hop back in the Wire time machine. We're not going to go too far. We're going to go back into like late spring, early summer. Okay, guys? We had about 6 episodes straight, if you remember, where we covered one quarterback and his open statements about not wanting to play football with his current franchise. Well, I watched the Green Bay Packers play against the Chicago Bears this weekend, along with fans all across the country, and what we all saw was the very same quarterback singing a completely different tune. Wouldn't you guys say so? You guessed it. I am talking about none other than Aaron from State Farm, Aaron Rodgers. So let me start the dive by saying the Packers did have a good day on Sunday. They won 24-14 over Justin Field and the Bears. Aaron Rodgers was 17 for 23 at 195 yards, 2 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown on the day. There's probably enough here to talk about a few things, but before we get into anything else, I want to talk about a little, what do you call that, mic'd up moment that Mr. Rodgers had while he was on the Bears sideline this weekend. You did hear me right a minute ago. Aaron Rodgers did have a rushing touchdown, and he followed it up by yelling out to the Bears crowd, pardon my French, I just want to quote the man how he said it, okay? He said, I own you, I've always fucking owned you, I own you. So let's break this down. So for some context, after the game, he did say that he looked up after he scored and saw a Bears fan, a woman, giving him the double bird. And he didn't particularly remember exactly what he said in the moment, but the way he said in the post game, he was basically just taunting back. I do want your guys' general outlook on the game and everything, but I'd like to start, Richie, with Aaron Rodgers. If nothing else, it does look like he may be having fun playing football with the Packers again. What do you make of Rodgers, his gameplay, his attitude, the statements during or after the game? What are your thoughts on number 12, Richie?
I mean, here's what I have to say about number 12. Like, we talk too much about, they're 5-1 and, they're starting to roll. But let me clarify something. Last week, we just talked about how horrible they played against Cincinnati. They were lucky to beat Cincinnati. And I'm not going to sit here and talk about Cincinnati other than they're a hopeful playoff team. Well, Aaron Rodgers and Green Bay are supposed to be perennial playoff teams. They look terrible against New Orleans. People aren't, let's not forget that. And most of their wins have been barely wins. They've beaten the lowly Steelers. They barely beat the 49ers. And they barely beat the Detroit Lions, honestly. And they got pulverized by the Saints. And so they beat the Bears. Well, guess what? He's 22-4 against the Bears in his career. I'm not impressed. That's why he said he owns them, because he doesn't lose to them because they suck. It's really that simple. So what did I learn from this? Nothing. Is Aaron Rodgers playing okay? He's playing okay, right? For the MVP of last year, he has 1,400 yards. He is not anywhere near the passing lead right now. Devontae Adams is playing ball. Like, if we're going to talk about who's doing well in Green Bay, Devontae Adams is doing well. Aaron Rodgers is playing okay, but he's not playing like last year's Aaron Rodgers. So to me, I'm not impressed. I don't really care. Here's one I'll be impressed. They're going to be playing Arizona in 2 weeks. If they beat Arizona and they beat the Chiefs, I'll apologize to Aaron Rodgers right here, right now. But I don't see that happening. I don't see them beating Arizona. I think they're going to lose. But we'll see, and then they're going to have another fun game against the Rams. I'm looking forward to that. And then if he wants to do his little discount double check then cool. But like he's played a bunch of nobodies and they're 5-1. Like, so I don't care. It's the same thing with the Bengals. And I'm only bringing them up because they have a pretty good record and everyone's starting to talk about they could be a playoff team. They've played nobody, right? And the Bengals lost to this Bears team that I'm making fun of. So Green Bay's played nobody. They have an easy schedule. They have one of the easiest schedules. I'm shocked that their schedule's so easy. I'm looking at the AFC North and they're playing killers. And I'm looking over here at Green Bay and the toughest game he's got to play is against the Rams, which, okay, fine, fair enough, but he's going to have to play them no matter what. It's the NFC. He has to play them. So he's playing the Rams and maybe the Chiefs, but the Chiefs aren't really been looking too good. Sorry, Chiefs fans. And then the Cardinals. He's got 3 teams maybe he'll lose to. So they could, for all I know, they'll go 16-1, quite frankly, maybe 15-2. But this shit doesn't mean anything until I see him in the playoffs. And last time I checked, the boy doesn't make it to the Super Bowl. He always falters when it counts. So what does this mean to me? Absolutely nothing.
Oh, man. Thank you, Richie. Marvin, we're going to move over to you. Same question. We talked a lot before we got to the football season about whether or not Aaron Rodgers was even going to play football. He didn't want to. He specifically said, I don't want to play football for these people. On Sunday, it looked like he was having a good time playing football in Green Bay.
Well, Soldier Field.
Yeah. For Green Bay in Soldier Field in Chicago. What do you make of Aaron Rodgers? And we'll get to the rest of the game here in a minute, but specifically his statements during the game, after the game, all that.
I don't want to be too dramatic here, but what do I think? I mean, Richie took all the words out of my mouth. I mean, what is it? It's week 6. I mean, this is laughable. This is pathetic. I mean, on Aaron Rodgers' part, I mean, this is not 2010 where he's playing Caleb Haney in an NFC title game. Maybe that's what took him back. Maybe that was a nostalgic moment that he had, that he was playing a beat up Bears team with no David Montgomery, a decoy like Allen Robinson. I mean, that offense is just terrible outside of developing Justin Fields. But what is it, week 6 and he's doing that? I mean, like Richie said, he's been playing nobodies. They're 5-1. Devontae's been good. Aaron Jones has been good. But like I said, it's week 6. Do that in week 18. Do that in week 19 when you have to go up against Tom Brady. I want to see that then. I want to see him do that in the playoffs. I want to see him confidently do that on the way to the Super Bowl, because we all know the regular season, I mean, Aaron Rodgers just said it himself. It's either Super Bowl or it's a failure. So it seems as if, he's having fun now, but he's put all his emphasis on regular season games, making sure that he gives you a highlight reel, which we haven't really seen highlight reel Aaron Rodgers, from previous season. He's been good, but he hasn't been at an MVP level. So it's, I think this is his last season, like you said. So he put us all through the hoopla the whole summer, all to get to now. And now all of a sudden, he's having fun, in regular season games. But, like I said before, can you do that come postseason time when you got to go up against the Bucks? So I'm not impressed. The Bears are completely depleted. They have a challenging schedule coming up. Like Richie said, Arizona, Rams. Who else am I missing? I mean, they've got some.
They're gonna play the Ravens as well.
They play the Ravens. They've got some tough matchups.
And Cleveland after it. Yeah.
And Cleveland and Green Bay's defense is going to be tested. We all know they have a Swiss cheese defense like they've had for the past couple of years. They've got some good. I mean, they've got some players out. So that's really going to be a test. But I'm not I'm not impressed by this. I thought it was funny. I thought him doing that in the moment was fucking hilarious. The woman giving him the double bird. I mean, obviously the woman's giving him the double bird because that's her team. Like, he scored a rushing touchdown. Of course she's going to do that. But Aaron Rodgers said, I'll own you. I'll always own you. Yeah, that may be true. But will you own Tampa Bay? Will you own LA? Will you own any of those teams? Because they're waiting for Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs. Aaron Donald is waiting for you in the playoffs. So I don't know. I mean, the GOAT has 7 rings. He's trying to get 8 while Aaron Rodgers is trying to get 2.
Fair enough. All right, let's talk a little bit about the rest of the game. The Ohio State alum, Justin Fields, he was 16 for 27, had 174 yards. He did throw a pick and a touchdown. How do you guys feel about the game as a whole and or Justin Fields' performance, how he's coming along? We talked a little bit about him preseason. Richie, will let you lead off on the rest of the game.
Sure. Well, I'm not going to talk about Green Bay. Green Bay did what they were supposed to do, beat up a shitty team that's depleted, to Marvin's point. Justin Fields, specifically the scope of this. Justin's looking okay. I think he's in a bad position. I remember at the beginning of the draft, I was saying that to me, that's the most ready guy to go. And he doesn't look ready. Let me clarify that. I think this was an indicator, as this was the previous week in particular, that he's not ready. But I still stand by that. He's a gutsy guy who can do it. When Justin Fields is your leading running back, that's not a great thing. This is not Lamar Jackson, who, by the way, is 7th in rushing in the NFL. We should talk about him next week. But Justin Fields, when your rookie quarterback is also your leading rusher, that's what he's got to work with. And the answer is nothing. He's got nothing to work with. And, we'll have to see. Is Chicago going to placate and tailor this offense to Justin Fields, like, for instance, Baltimore did with Lamar Jackson? And I don't mean that by running. That's not what I want Justin Fields to be doing. But are they going to accept the fact that Allen Robinson is your best wide receiver and you got Justin Fields and that's it? This is going to be a painful year. What I'm hoping Justin Fields can get out of this, because obviously he's a competitor, so his goal is going to be to win. But what I'm hoping this season will help him accomplish is going through his progressions if he has opportunities to. Last week, he was getting creamed and crushed, and he didn't even have 3.5 seconds. I think he had like 2.6 seconds per snap to throw the ball, which is obviously not what you want. So I'm hoping this year he'll at least be able to learn to start reading progressions, because again, the most challenging thing, and every NFL player talks about this, is playing quarterback. And the reason is when you play another position, you have to understand what you're doing on the offense, or maybe, for instance, line, what your partner, your guard's doing if you're the tackle. And that's it. When you're the quarterback, you have to know what all your boys are doing, what all those defensive players are doing all at once. So it's a different animal stepping in as a rookie, as a quarterback, than compared to any other position. So Justin Fields has probably the hardest task of the lot. And unlike Joe Burrow and unlike Herbert, he is not in a great spot. Like, those guys got to ball out because they got good situations, quite frankly. And don't get me wrong, Herbert's a beast. I love Joe Burrow, but Herbert, man, that kid is a beast. And I think Justin Fields in a better situation would be looking better. So all I can say is I'm hoping, because the situation is not improving this year, he'll just be able to learn from this process and learn and develop, and that next year they get him help. Because this year, there's nothing positive to say other than I hope he doesn't get injured and I hope he can learn the role better. That's about it I got for Justin.
Marvin, same question. Anything else, scope of the game that you learned or liked or didn't like? And then kind of thoughts on Justin Fields as he's starting to plant his feet here in the NFL.
I mean, he just needs more time. Just needs more time. This is not a loss season for Justin Fields. He's not a bust. We all know that. That's what Richie said, and he'd probably be, more ready so in a different situation. But this is the cards he's been dealt, and I ultimately think next year he'll be the starting quarterback if he progresses through the summer We'll see if he can, improve in certain areas, getting rid of the ball time, getting that, being more of a mobile quarterback, going through his progressions, going through all the motions rookie QBs go through. He's going to have to go through the hard knocks and learning curves. But I think that, them being so depleted right now, David Montgomery not being there, he'll be back in a couple of weeks. And Andy Dalton being out, really just there's not a lot of room for him there's room for him to grow, but the expectations should be low, if that makes sense. Like people should lower their expectations on what he should do. Over the summer and the spring, I messed up by saying he could be like a young Kyler Murray at a NFC North. I shouldn't have said that. He's got a long way to go. But I think he's in a good spot. He's just got to develop under a different coach. We all know Matt Nagy should be fired, but that's a different, segment for a different day. But I think that he will find, like Richie's saying, probably would develop in a better system under a better coach if it wasn't Matt Nagy.
Absolutely. All right, so I'm going to actually shift gears because we haven't done that in a while. And I want to try to get to two other quarterbacks. Get on the old quarterback carousel, as we used to call it. Since it was always led off by Aaron Rodgers before, we're just going to stick to the trend, right? Another quarterback I'd like to bring up real quick, and then we'll get into Lamar Jackson. Patrick Mahomes. I've got a theory, and I'm gonna pitch you the theory, but we obviously see that there's something up this season, right? I mean, he's throwing interceptions. Looking at the game they played against Washington football team, to Richie's point, or to quote Richie, they did what they were supposed to do, right? They beat up on Washington football team 31-13. However, Patrick Mahomes still he was 32 for 47. He had 397 yards and a couple of touchdowns, but he had 2 interceptions again. This is becoming a trend with Patrick Mahomes. The way I'm going to pitch this story to you, you can talk about anything you want to about the game. I'm just saying every week or watch a week of football. My girlfriend's a Kansas City fan, so I have to watch the Kansas City game. It ends. I'm flipping through the news on my phone, and there's always a Mahomes story. This week, it was his brother dancing all over what's his name's jersey. Or what is, and the last week before that, his wife was involved. Week before that, his wife was involved. He's in like 16 commercials right now. Is Patrick Mahomes doing too much off of the field? I mean, is he not? Is that what we're seeing here? I hate to pitch it like Sahe would, but
who's going first on this one?
Whoever wants it.
Man, if y'all don't leave this brother alone, y'all cannot. Okay, I refuse as a fan of Patrick Mahomes and just good football in general. And hopefully I can speak for you fellas. I refuse to let the NFL make Patrick Mahomes look like LeBron James of the media, turn him into this guy that's like always like either just out there or doing, somebody's or just bringing attention to himself.
Yeah, drama and attention. Yeah,
just drama and attention. Like, that's what I mean. Being one of those athletes, like Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the game. He goes to work. He wants to win. And when you're on top, people will always find ways to take shots at you to bring you down. Even when you fall, they're going to kick you while you're down. And that's kind of what's happening with Patrick Mahomes right now. Now, Justin, I know what you're talking about. I've seen the videos with his brother and his wife. And yes, it's distracting, but I don't think that has nothing to do with his job. He's still spectacular. He goes out there and still puts up numbers. He's not the problem, Justin. The brother and the wife's not the problem. It's that defense. That's the problem at the end of the day. That's the big glaring issue of what's going on. It's not Patrick Mahomes. So Patrick Mahomes, I hope that he can just stay focused on football, man. Don't worry about these little distractions. This is what they want you to do. This is what you can't play into the hands, man. Like, I'm a fan of Patrick Mahomes. I just don't want to see it happen, yo. I don't want to see them turn this hardworking athlete into something polarizing, something he's not, something he never asked for.
I hear what you're saying, Marvin, but Richie, the fact of the matter is Patrick Mahomes is throwing more interceptions this season than he has in his career, right? He's off. And
I don't like I don't like the way you're saying it like that, man.
Right. No, hold on.
Down.
I'm gonna stop the moderator here. We done with this conversation. Let me point this out. He also has 18 touchdowns this season. He's got the most touchdowns out of any quarterback, right? So
he's making it sound like it's this.
No. Hold on. Wait. I'm not done. All right. So let's look, because I'm ready. He said quarterback. I started looking at statistics. Patrick Mahomes is 18-8. To Justin's point, pretty high interceptions, but you're comparing him to himself, not to his contemporaries. Not every year will not always be a great year. And I said this before the season started, and I said it last week. He lost Sammy Watkins. That's a big deal. When you lose a receiver who gets you 1,200 yards the previous season, it's a big deal. They try to curve it off that like it wasn't, because you still have Travis Kelce and you still got that little midget Tyreek. But the bottom line is you lost Sammy Watkins. It's a loss. They're not a balanced team. They do not run the ball. That is not what they do. So yes, that's a struggle. Also, he's not playing as well. Also, their defense is garbage, which is my next point. Matt Stafford, 16-4, very comparable numbers, significantly less interceptions. Well, he's got the best defense in the league. I would hope he's doing well. Tom Brady, 17-3, by far the best statistics when we look at that. Well, he's got arguably the best defense. Of course he's going to be doing well. Dak Prescott, 16-4. Same thing. Oh, wait, Dallas Cowboys. Wait, they have a guy with 7 interceptions. Their defense is pretty good. So when you look at his contemporaries and the people who are even in his realm, yes, he has more interceptions, but it's because he has a terrible defense and he's having to do the Patrick Mahomes syndrome, which this isn't on Patrick Mahomes. This is on Andy Reid. How, and I said this about Golden State, and it's the same thing. When you are significantly more talented than the teams you are playing, how dare you always be losing and have to quote unquote come back? And that's what Patrick Mahomes has had to do for his career. Consistently every year, his teams have been 13-3, 14-2, 12-4. They're always front runners and always in the lead. But when you watch them play, they always have to come back. They never take a lead and run with it. And that's on the coach. That's not on Patrick Mahomes. And too often, Patrick Mahomes has been bailing out Kansas City. And now what you're seeing is he's having a slightly off year and he's not bailing them out, and they're kind of surviving. So he's at 18-8. They're surviving. This isn't his best year, but this isn't like a call. Like, the team does not look good. That I agree with. Kansas City, if you're a fan, your team has a lot of work to do. But if you're a fan that's actually pointing at Patrick Mahomes, then you really need to really watch what's going on with your team right now. Your special teams and your defense are a big problem right now. Patrick is throwing a lot of interceptions, quite frankly, significantly more than the last 2 years combined. But having said that, you're comparing one of the greatest runs a human being has ever had as a quarterback to himself. So by his own measure, yes, he's not playing as good as he was last year and the previous year. But that has more to do with where his team is at in the games. I don't think it's inaccurate. There are the stupid, and I make fun of it, crossbody, full screen bullshits, and a couple of those have been picks 3. So you take those out, and if he learns to play a little more conservatively, then maybe he's at 18-5 instead of 18-8. But the bottom line is that's who Patrick Mahomes is, doing those crossbody, no look things. And if he changes his play, who's to say he's gonna be more effective? A lot of people are saying the same thing about Lamar Jackson. He can't run all forever. He can't run forever. He can't run forever, or he can't pass. And Denver blocked it. 9 guys in the box, and he threw for 350 yards. These guys are special. They have special talents, and Patrick's are circus little throws. This year, it's not going as well, but he's still a fantastic quarterback. And Kansas City's bigger problem is that defense, to Marvin's point.
Absolutely. I love getting you guys riled up. It's been a while. I'm not quite done. We are going to get into Lamar Jackson. But Marvin, you brought up a good point, and I did want to kind of just circle back around to it. Given that Patrick Mahomes is, and I do think he's a superstar, of course, obviously. Given who he is and the position that he's in, and we've talked about pressure versus expectation as far as him playing football goes. Do you think maybe his family and the people surrounding him should back off a little bit and try to stay out of the media and not add that additional stress on, being that he is, like you mentioned, kind of a target for this, like LeBron was?
Yeah, I would say his wife can do whatever she wants to do, but I would tell the little brother to go sit down somewhere. If we really wanted to get that technical, if we really wanted to say that, he should go sit down somewhere. I've seen the videos. You're really not doing yourself. He's really not doing himself justice. He's kind of making himself look like a jackass in these videos. It's not that you're embarrassing Patrick Mahomes. It's really just embarrassing himself. It's just a distraction to him. And Patrick Mahomes just happens to be his brother. We've all been in that position where we've got either a little cousin or someone, or someone that's relatively younger than us, be the one that's like doing the, off in the corner, wanting the attention, wanting the spotlight, and, because he just wants some shine. And I get that from Patrick Mahomes' little brother. He just wants some shine. But he can do all the dancing and stuff, but he should probably be the one to tone it down, Justin, if anything. The wife can do. She can do whatever she wants. She's married to Patrick Mahomes. She's worth $500 million too. That's her money too. He married it. So he's in it. She's in it to win it, but he can go sit down somewhere.
Richie, of course, we're referring specifically to the disrespectful video of him dancing on, was it Sean Taylor, right? Passed away of the Washington football team.
Yes.
Do you think there's any responsibility on Patrick as far as kind of trying to eliminate some of this press if he can?
No. Here's an example. 2019, Steph Curry, Ayesha Curry said some goofy shit about like she wanted male attention. It was really weird. I don't know why she said it. And, people were like getting on Steph Curry, like control your woman, which one is already like a whole, I don't want to get into that. But the point is this is like, it's not his responsibility. Who cares? I mean that. Like, his brother's a little jackass. Okay, yeah. Then make fun of the guy. He's embarrassing himself, to Marvin's point. But you know what Patrick Mahomes' job is? To focus on football and throw the ball the best he can throw. It doesn't matter what his wife says. It doesn't matter if his brother's a disrespectful sack of shit. Let Washington deal with that. Let the fans castrate him as they have been and will do. Like, he has one responsibility, and that's to the Kansas City Chiefs playing the best football he can do. His brand is not going to suffer because his brother's an idiot or his wife is talking smack. I mean, look at like what Giselle would say with Tom Brady. Nothing ever happened of that kind of stuff about the Wes Welker stuff. Like, none of that stuff ever mattered, and it's not going to matter. At the end of the day, in the NFL, and I don't want to say this in a nasty way, but it's just truth. It doesn't matter what even Patrick Mahomes could do something disgusting, quite frankly, but because he's Patrick Mahomes and he can throw the football, people will turn an eye. So it doesn't matter that his brother is saying, so who cares? It doesn't mean anything. If I were Patrick, like I said, I'd be more concerned about the 8 interceptions you brought up than my brother dancing on somebody's jersey. Whatever. Obviously I'd send him a text and be like, that's disrespectful, man. I'm surprised you would do something like that disgusting, but I don't think he needs to be worrying about controlling people. It's not his business. I mean, it is because it's his family and that's the perceived notion, but it's not his business. His business is football.
Absolutely. I feel you guys. Let's move on. The quarterback carousel turn one more time before we get out of here. You brought him up. I want to talk about him. Looking at 2021 stats right now, he's got, obviously played all 6 games. We're talking about Lamar Jackson. He's got 131 completions. That's out of 194 attempts. His completion percentage is 67.5%, 1,686 passing yards, 392 rushing yards. He's got 2 rushing touchdowns. He's got 9 passing touchdowns. And with all this movement, he's thrown only 5 interceptions. you asked for him, Richie. Why don't we start off with you? Lamar Jackson in this season that he is having.
He's special, and last year, and this is why I'm glad we got to talk about him for a minute, because too often we've been talking about Patrick Mahomes and exclusively Tom Brady. For a little minute, we got to talk about Matt Stafford, and Matt Stafford's having a great season, and Herbert is too, and so is Kyler Murray, quite frankly. But I want to talk about Lamar Jackson for a minute. This boy is special. 345 yards. So yes, Tom Brady's throwing for that, but you know what Lamar Jackson's doing? He's running for almost 70. He's moving the chains by his damn self. And he doesn't have a single, we talk about Justin Fields, right? Justin Fields needs to look at Lamar Jackson and be like, how, and again, not do what he does, but look at how he can lead his team the way Lamar leads Baltimore. What I love about Lamar is John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh trusts that kid. So often he'll be like, what do you want to do? And it's 4th down, 4th and 3. If Lamar says go for it, John's like, go for it. And he lets him try. And I love that you have a head coach who believes in someone that much that they'll let him make that decision. Because as we saw with Aaron Rodgers and we see with Tom Brady, sometimes that doesn't happen for those guys. Lamar has 100% trust from that organization. Week in and week out, pundits say he needs to pass the ball. He can't keep doing this. He can't keep running. Well, you know what? Last time I checked, he's 6th in rushing and he's 8th in passing. And overall, he's by far the most dominant player through 6 weeks of football. They've broken an incredible record of, I believe, 20 rushing games of 100 yards consecutively. Marvin might be able to get the exact stat, or Justin will, but it's an incredible record as a team. And Lamar Jackson is the sole reason that's been happening. And Lamar Jackson is just a phenom, because you're talking about a guy who, as we discussed briefly earlier, Denver stacked the box and got upset that they ran on the last play and Lamar was able to get the 100 yards. But he's incredible. They talk about his lack of passing and things like that. Well, you know what the problem is with that? Realistically, it's not just Lamar, his deep ball's not this, that, and the other. It's Hollywood Brown's his best wide receiver. And Sammy Watkins is his second best. The Baltimore historically does not get great wide receivers. They push to get Juju. That's what Juju talked about. His options were Kansas City and Baltimore, and they paid him more, and he ended up going back to Pittsburgh. But Baltimore tried, but Baltimore is never going to be a position where wide receivers are willingly going to come, because they've seen historically Derek Mason, Anquan Bolden, what these great wide receivers who came there and didn't get the opportunities that they need to be able to get paid and get their statistics. And, I think that's what's unfortunate for Lamar Jackson, is he's always going to be pigeonholed in this I can only run thing. But it's not, when you really look at the team and what he's got with him, he doesn't have great options. And he still does. He makes magic. He makes chicken shit out of a chicken salad out of chicken shit. Like, honestly, this dude's incredible. I love this kid. I'm a Bengals fan, so it's like, it's hard for me to root for Baltimore, but I just love what I'm seeing with this kid week in and week out. He's like the RG3, the Michael Vick. He's the guy that everyone always hoped was going to be fantastic, and you're seeing it happen. And you're seeing a guy who's been dominating from rookie year to now and inception. And I only hope he doesn't get injured, and I want to watch his career for 15 more years like this. He's phenomenal, man. Pittsburgh better hope they get somebody half as talented as this guy when Ben's done this year.
Or him.
or him.
I've been saying it for weeks.
Sure.
I thought it would be the perfect. Perfect turnaround for Pittsburgh.
I'd give just about anybody but Joe Burrow and Herbert at this point. Like, man, Lamar Jackson's special, dude.
Real quick, Marvin, before we get over to you, the record I think you were referring to was the streak of 100-yard rushing games. They tied it at 43. Another quick record that Lamar Jackson has gotten this year. He set the NFL record for most wins, which is 35 under the age of 25. So, Marvin, take it away. What do you think about Lamar Jackson closing out the show here today?
He's been nothing short of phenomenal. I mean, going into this season, honestly, didn't think that he would put up stellar passing numbers than he did last year. I thought that he would actually struggle because they lack a true number one receiver. But, as you can see, he's utilized every single player of that core. You know, Mark Andrews, Hollywood Brown, and there's some, and a couple of guys I don't even know their names. Lamar Jackson is spreading the ball around. Let's just call them you, me, and you, Richie, and Justin. Let's call those guys. But yeah, he's just spreading the ball around. And in the absence of a run game, the run game is Lamar Jackson. When you look at the odds stacked against him this season, losing Gus Edwards, losing J.K. Dobbins, losing their entire running back core, Lamar Jackson's like, okay, he could have used that as an excuse and was like, all right, we don't have enough this year. He could have folded, from week one. But Lamar Jackson is single-handedly put this team on his back. He is the face of the franchise, and he's making it happen. And I wouldn't be surprised if, he had an MVP, won the MVP this year. I mean, you saw what they did with the Chargers. He just looked phenomenal. But I think the most surprising thing has been his turnovers. His turnovers are down. He's not fumbling the ball. He's not throwing interceptions. I really think they're going to win the division because Lamar Jackson. I really think that division is kind of injury depleted, but the Ravens seem to be the most healthy with Lamar Jackson. When you got Lamar Jackson at the helm, he's the best quarterback in that division. To me, you got Joe Burrow, but they're not there yet in terms of being there with the Ravens. They're just a level of experience and what it's going to come down to at the end of the day. And the Ravens have that defensive postseason experience the Bengals don't have. So I think Lamar has done a great job this year, and he's definitely proved why he's probably, if not the best one of the best quarterbacks in the game right now, next to Patrick Mahomes. It could be an argument, Pat, then Lamar. We know Tom Brady's the GOAT. We know that. But we're talking about best in the game right now in terms of who can do it all, and it's been Lamar Jackson.
All right, folks, we want to know what you think. Let us know in the comments below on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and where all audio podcasts are found. Make sure not only that you're subscribing and liking, but if you're on YouTube, hit that notifications bell. You can do the same thing on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We will let you know when we're sending out new information. In our comments, in our bio, you should be able to also find our Patreon. So you get exclusive access to all of our behind-the-scenes content. Once you become a patron, you can also come on the show and talk sports with us. Leave a review on the audio podcast. And also, we've been putting in those polls and those Q&As. We want to know what you think about these stories. For this week, this has been The Wire. We'll see you next Wednesday and every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Don't forget to check out the H2G podcast on Fridays at 7 Eastern. You guys have a good weekend.